Good late Saturday night, everyone. I'm Kevin McPherson. This is HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Yeah, how dare I? What's going on here? Is this really happening? And I thought about this. I was putting out a tweet. I was getting ready to announce that I was coming on early in the morning to do one of these segments to get you caught up on. I had a lot of intel today. Get you caught up on what's going on with Arkansas Razorbacks men's basketball. And I thought about it. I was like, I've done the Midnight Madness. I've done one or two segments like this in the past, where I came on at late, or I thought, well, I won't quite go to midnight. I'll jump on. I was watching the UFC live stuff on ESPN with my son, and decided I was laughing about it. I'm like, I'm just going to do it tonight and get some stuff out of the way and wait. Good evening, Kevin. Looking great this Saturday night. Yeah, we're looking great this Saturday night. We're trying to get some intel out to the people. So let's get started. John Calipari really started this. He kick-started this discussion. We got several things to go over. I tweeted out, kind of teasing some of the names we'll talk about. But Calipari started this on Wednesday. We were there for the open media to have an hour-long window to watch the team. Then we had a post-practice presser. And Calipari brings up the fact that he's going out. He said, I'm leaving tomorrow, and I'll be watching a player that I might add, as looking at it long term, as a developmental player, something long term. When he starts talking about now adding guys that can be retention and you develop them. And we saw the two big men they added, this coaching staff back in mid-June, effectively both international players. One had been in a prep school in Orlando, Florida, but from Angola, the other straight away from Bosnia, a couple of 7-footers. We're still waiting on those to come to campus. We mentioned Aiden Kelly the day before we were at practice, the walk-on from a previous year being added again as a walk-on to this roster after kind of being up in the air. He wasn't officially on the roster, although we knew he was around for weeks, if not months, still with the group. And so we explained how, because he's grandfathered in as a true walk-on as a freshman last year, that even though walk-ons according to the new House bill will count towards the 15 max that you can have, that roster number, but if you were already a walk-on prior to the House bill going through in the previous year, that you would not count. So effectively Arkansas can have 16 players on the roster, not 15, when you include Aiden Kelly. All right, so we went through all that already. But then Calipari, kicks the can down the road a little more on that talking point when he says he's going out to look at someone he might add to the roster. And we discussed this. We told you on our last segment yesterday, on Friday, the more recent one that we did, that what's out there, maybe an international player, but also since he's already hitting up the different various grassroots events on the shoe circuits, that's kind of what he's been glued to. He started out at Adidas on Thursday, the day after the practice and that press conference. Then he was at Nike all day Friday. He was at Nike early this morning, Saturday morning, but then he departed at some point in the day. And this is where I started getting information. Now, I will say this. One of the things we talked about on the last episode, it was the fact that probably what you're looking at is either an unsigned senior, or if it's a reclass from 2026, it's not going to be a high caliber guy, because you wouldn't describe a high caliber guy as developmental in multiple years. And so the guys you're looking at as typically as a reclass, when you're talking your 5-star, top 30, top 50, whatever type of guys, you're looking at players that, are coveted and are not looking to be around for several years. We use the example because I was asked specifically about Erfan Diane, and I explained that's not the kind of guy that you would try to get to reclass and describe as a developmental guy. So I kind of set the table of what we're looking for. Be someone off the radar, like Elmir Jovic and Paulo Samito were. And I even said, Samito was a top 50 ESPN rated guy, but he was also playing as an unsigned senior in May on the Puma circuit, which tells you a lot. And so again, this will be a similar situation is what I thought. Well, we've got a name now, and I've been pursuing this a good part of the day. I was told, I have a source with Made Hoops, which is another circuit event. It's not your typical higher level like Nike or Adidas. or Under Armour or even the Puma circuit. Made Hoops is one that's been around. They've had events in Arkansas, but I have a source with Made Hoops that said Cal's coming, and we think he's coming to look at this player. The player happens to be from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, class of 2026. And Pittsburgh's significant because we know Cal's a Pittsburgh guy. We know Adu Thero was a guy that he recruited from that area. We know the five-star freshman, Malik Thomas, from that area. We know Malik's buddy, Amir Brown, the walk-on 5'10 guard, another Pittsburgh kid. Well, here's another Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mikkel, and this is a hyphenated last name, Bruce McCommon, and he is a 6'6 guard out of Gateway High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the young man confirmed with me that Cal was out to see him today. So Cal started out at Nike. He was courtside today with Jim Coleman to see J.J. Andrews again, the five-star future hog from Little Rock who committed back in May. Well, J.J. had one game today. Calipari was courtside for that. And then at some point shortly after that, Calipari was on the road going to Pennsylvania. This event, this Made Hoops grassroots event, was played, I think, in Oaks, Pennsylvania. This young man had a couple of night games, I believe, and Calipari attended at least one of those. So he was courtside. Now, here's the thing with this. The young man's confirmed that Cal was there. I've checked with the staff. They've confirmed that this is a name to pay attention to. But here's the thing about the reclass. He's 2026. If he can reclass to 2025, he would absolutely be a long-term kind of guy. And you'd have a third player on your roster from Pittsburgh. But he could also remain, if it doesn't work out, he's not able to go 2025, he still could be a developmental guy that you add with your 26 class. He wouldn't be one of your priority guys. But if you look at the way Arkansas has recruited since Calipari's been here, the core NIL guys, the five-star level guys, or the top 30, whatever type of guys he's gone after, including, and then Isaiah Seeley ranked inside ESPN's top 70. In addition to those guys, he's gone and gotten players, the first cycle, Jaden Caroletwa from California, out of the high school ranks. He was a player that was on athletic scholarship technically, although more of a walk-on developmental role. So this could be a guy that just stays 26 and ends up being a developmental guy either way. I think this is the guy that they're looking at to maybe get him, that he gets reclass at 25 and they go ahead and bring him on, and they've got a development piece there. But even if that doesn't work, it doesn't mean they won't stay on him for 26 in the same kind of role. That's why we put a question mark. Has Cal identified the final roster spot? Until we know for certain that this young man can reclass and has the credit requirements, all that met where he could, we still wonder a little bit, but we know that Arkansas is out to see him. We've confirmed that. And this is not the typical kind of guy that, and I'm not saying this to be disparaging, that Cal would recruit as part of his core group. And so whether it's 25 or 26, no knock on the kid, but that's why you have why you have an arm of your program for development. We know retention's a big part of what Calipari's doing. We know preferred high school talent's part of it. Less is the portal, right? It's kind of like the smallest percentage. So far, he's only grabbed 2 players in each recruiting cycle for the first 2 rosters out of the portal. But now we're starting to see there is a development part of this, especially in this class, again, with Javich and Samito. And now perhaps we're not ready to bank it that this is going to happen for 25 to round out this roster, but we're saying that it may be heading that way. It looks like it is. Just not 100% absolute that it lands that way, but it looks like it may be going that way. And again, Cal likes his Pittsburgh guys, right? So there's something there. There's something to that. But a 6'6" wing, as a junior last year, averaged 21 points per game. The photo on the thumbnail that I used is off his Twitter account. And you get a look at that thumbnail to see what he looks like. And so that's really the intel there that Arkansas looks to be perhaps zeroing in on Mikkel Bruce McCrommon, a 6'6" guard out of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. Let's go, Kevin. When is the reclass deadline? I don't know. Sometime to get in time enough to get enrolled for fall semester. So I'm not sure what the exact drop dead date is for that. And so, it's intel on where this is going. It's not a breaking news. This player has committed to Arkansas. We didn't advertise that. We're telling you what the intel is and that this is a player. It doesn't mean that Calipari's not have other options up his sleeve to round out the roster. We're just saying this is not the typical grassroots stop you would make as Calipari. And so there's a reason for that. Think about that for a minute. And so it's in it, but the young man is nice. I mean, I followed him on Twitter. He followed me immediately and we exchanged a little bit. Super nice. Thanked me for reaching out to him and said that, yeah, Cal was there to see him play today. So my source information on that was good. I started building this once I started hearing some of this stuff and kind of putting two and two together. All right, let's move on. We've got more news that came out today. Some of this is good stuff. I think all of it's really good stuff when you're talking 5 stars, right? Let's start with something that we tweeted about. So this part is not the intel. Tay Kinney revealed today that he does plan to visit Arkansas. The 6'2" guard, lead guard from the state of Kentucky, plays at Overtime Elite, ranked 17th, I believe, in ESPN's National Top 100 for class 2026, a 5-star guard. I covered him in May in Texas at the Adidas 3SSB event there, interviewed him at the time. He told me in the interview's public record, I put it out on Twitter, that he would be scheduling a visit to Arkansas soon. Well, he repeated that to Joe Tipton a couple of days ago, not the soon part, but just that he planned to visit Arkansas. Today, Sam Lance, who's a national recruiting analyst for Zag's blog, Adam Zagoria's outfit, reported that Kinney told him that he's going to visit Arkansas on September 26th. Well, that's a Friday. That's the weekend of September 26th through Sunday, September 28th. Nestled in between there on September 27th, Saturday, the football Hogs will host their one and only September game in Reynolds Razorback Stadium. And it just happens to be Notre Dame. And so once I saw that this date had been released, I checked. A source told me, oh yeah, he'll attend basketball practice. And the plan is he'll obviously be attending that football game at Reynolds Razorback Stadium. And so that is a big deal when you're talking getting this visitor in. Now, this is a guy I mentioned on the last episode that we had yesterday, that Calipari and the staff were recruiting him. He's a Kentucky native again, recruiting him while they were still at Kentucky. And in addition to that, I mentioned yesterday, and I believe this is true, this is the first 2026 player that this staff offered a scholarship to once they came to Arkansas, before J.J. Andrews and some other ones. I think he was the first one, or he was one of, I think he was numero uno in terms of chronology when the offer came out. I'm very impressed with Tay Kinney. He's an energy guy, plays with a great pace, great court awareness and vision as a passer, makes really good decisions off the bounce. He can create his own shot. He can knock down threes. But he seems more interested in distributing and getting guys involved, or at least as much interested in that as he is finding his own shot. He's a tough defender. He doesn't mind physicality. He's not the biggest dude, but he does not mind scrapping and scraping. And so I really like Tay Kinney. I've said that all along, but now you're getting him on campus. He's got a planned official visit for September 26th through the 28th. And remember, we told you that Erfan Diane, the 7'1", 285-pound center, has told me he plans to visit Arkansas in September. Again, if that's the month and that sticks, because his guardian has told me, well, he's going to take 5 to 7 visits, and he told me that'd be September and October. But Diane tells me his Arkansas visit September. Remember, this is old. We talked about this in May when I reported this. But to me, if that's your only weekend in September where you're hosting a game, that means, and I said this, Arkansas was going to use that Arkansas Notre Dame football game, the basketball staff, you trying to maximize official visitors for that game. So I'll be surprised if it's Tay Kinney and Tay Kinney alone. Again, the other front runner to possibly be on that visit is Erfan Diane. So the one thing I'll tell you about Kinney, so I gave you a little bit of updated info aside from the visit, what the plans are. It seems kind of obvious, but I just was able to confirm. And I know that the staff is looking forward to this visit. I can tell you that. I know that for a fact. And you think, well, isn't that obvious? They're having him in. Yeah, but they've been recruiting this guy for a while, and I think they're excited about it. Now, we mentioned before some of the general thinking out there from some of the national recruiting analysts, and some that also are in state in Kentucky that cover Louisville and Kentucky, that maybe he's a Louisville lean. He is an Adidas guy. Calipari watched him play in person on Thursday at the Adidas event. Arkansas's assistant coaches have watched him every game after Calipari left Friday for the Nike EYBL circuit. But Kentucky's obviously in the mix. Some other schools. He's talking about visiting Kansas, another Adidas school. But anytime it's John Calipari and he's been recruiting a young man as long as he has, and Kinney recently quoted, I think it was with Tipton yesterday, and I think we talked about, I paraphrased it. You look at Calipari's track record with guards and getting them to the next level in development. So anytime he gets a player on campus, I always say advantage Calipari. So we'll see what happens and see that a lot of times visits, as you know, get scheduled and they never happen, and sometimes they happen at a different date. We're still a ways out, but that sounds pretty solid. And it was around that time last year, late September, as we segue perfectly into our next talking point, was when Arkansas hosted class of 2026 Mika Mirinan, the 6'11" combo forward from Finland, fresh off of MVP performance in the Nike Peach Jam E6T Championship, along teammates with J.J. Andrews, who also arguably put up an MVP performance consistently leading up to that title. But Mirinan came and visited Arkansas. He'd previously visited Utah and Michigan at the time last fall, so we're getting close to a year. Again, a late September visit. At the time, he had canceled a visit to Duke, which was supposed to happen the weekend after his Arkansas visit, and he was kind of back and forth as to whether he'd visit Kentucky. Indiana and North Carolina State have recently offered him. He's narrowed down to a top 7 that includes Arkansas, Duke, Kentucky, Indiana, North Carolina State, Michigan, and I'm leaving somebody out here, North Carolina. And so, I've heard some talk that maybe North Carolina is in the lead. I've heard someone else say Michigan. Here's some intel for you on Mika Mirinan. I told you another thing. I said several teams, this was just yesterday, I said I'd heard several teams were backing off of him as a reclass and really just focused on 26. Were any of those top 7 teams perhaps focused in on trying to get him to reclass? And I said several had backed off. I really couldn't go into why, but I wasn't sure if Arkansas was still in it for him as a reclass or not. Seemed unlikely given that Calipari is out to see someone else as a developmental piece, which would complete the roster. The only way you could add him would be if someone else left or didn't arrive on campus. When you talk about the 2 that were committed but still haven't made it, but they're expected to be there. There's no indication that's not going to happen. Well, now I know that what the staff's intentions are. This is another part of your intel. I just got this evening. Arkansas maintains its recruitment for Mika Mirinan, so they're not. Remember, I said I wonder which teams are on that list might be fluff from previous recruitment, and they were just left on there. Well, that's not Arkansas. Arkansas is in it to win it, and they are recruiting him as a class of 2026 prospect, not as a reclass candidate. So that's what I'm told tonight. Things that get crazy and change in recruiting, I don't see how it will at this point. Typically, the staff's been level with me and giving me good information. It's played out that way every time. And so we'll see what happens here. But that's the intel on Mika Mirinan, that Arkansas is recruiting him as 2026, and they are still in it. And it's not one of those things where, we're really, we've been recruiting him, but we don't, not one of those deals. They're in it to win it. So we'll see what happens there. And we'll see if he decides, if he gets the right kind of offer to come sooner to a school, in which case Arkansas won't get him. And so there's that. All right, that's the intel on those guys. We've got, let's finish up with a couple of things. Today, Tyrone Jamison, a 6'2" guard out of Shreveport, Louisiana, goes to Calvary Baptist down there. He tweeted out that Arkansas had offered him a scholarship. And then I had reached out to Tyrone, again, a 6'2" guard out of Shreveport, to say, hey, tell me who you talked to and your impressions. and he just fired right back. He said he talked to Coach Cal and Chin Coleman, and that he was very happy to have a chance to play with the best coach in the world, quote unquote. Very happy to have a chance to play with the best coach in the world. So this is a young man that took an unofficial visit. I remember this for the Lipscomb game in non-conference play in Fayetteville. He took that unofficial visit. Again, he's class of 2027. He is ranked a composite national number 15, a 5-star. So you look at the track record with Calipari with 5 stars, but especially lately with lead guards when we talk, even just at Arkansas with Boogie Fland and Darius Acuff Jr. The 2026 class, you got Tay Kinney, point guard, 5-star point guard, coming in for an official visit in late September. This young man's already been on campus. This young man also said what he said about the opportunity and the chance to play for Calipari. I think that's a really positive thing. And again, look at he's a regional guy. It's close enough that going to Arkansas makes sense for family or whoever else is, it's within range to go to games. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. And you say, well, class of 2027, that's a bit far out. But this is how recruiting works. And I remember on June 15th was the first day at midnight when coaches could make direct contact with players. So just the previous month, less than a month ago. And Arkansas, one of the players that Arkansas reached out to immediately was Tyrone Jamison. So this has progressed. Again, was on campus unofficial visit in the non-conference action last season in year 1 for Calipari at Arkansas. They reached out at right after the stroke of midnight, whatever, on June 15th when they could first make direct contact with prospects. Now he's reporting the Arkansas offer. By the way, Calipari was courtside at Nike EYBL this morning to see him play. So he got to watch him in his 16 and under team, JL3 Elite, play drive. I believe it was 16U Drive Nation in that game that Calipari attended. Calipari again was courtside to see JJ Andrews. This is what we'll wrap with. Nearly 22 and a half minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's not quite midnight. It's late. It's been a hell of a day. It's been a great day. And I thought I was going to announce, I was going to tweet out that I was coming on at 5:30 or 6. Because Sunday will be busy for me. And I'm like, you know what? I haven't done the late night thing in a long time. I did the Midnight Madness. I did 1 or 2 of those in the past. I'm like, hell, I'm just going to get it over with. Let's just do it. Have fun with it. All right, JJ Andrews. His team led for most of the game. Brad Bill, they end up losing in the end to CP3, 17U in Nike EYBL play in North Augusta, South Carolina. This will bleed into next weekend, which officially becomes Nike Peach Jam at the same location. But for now, it's session 4 on EYBL. And JJ, not a great shooting game for him. Remember, he had a 24-point game in his first game Thursday, I believe. 8 of 11 from the field, made his only 3-point attempt, 7 of 8 at the free throw line, 7 rebounds and a win. He had an 11-point game with Calipari watching him on Friday. And his team lost. Well, they lost again today. JJ, not a great shooting night, but 15 points, 14 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and a block. I watched that game. I tweeted out some of the highlights. I watched it from start to finish. You could see Cal and Chin Coleman courtside for the entire thing. They were there. They didn't miss a minute of it. And it was sometime after that again that Calipari got out of there and headed off to Pennsylvania for the Made Hoops circuit event. And again, it's a lower tier level, but it's still got good players. It's got its share of Division I players. There have been some really good players. I mean, there have been some really good players. Remember, Anthony Black wasn't on the main circuits. He was kind of a late bloomer. He didn't play on the main circuits, and look what he was. I mean, it's not to say that you can't identify good players at some of these things. But again, what's been identified to us as a group, whether you're a fan or the media that was sitting there for that press conference, Calipari described what he's looking for right now to finish this roster as a developmental guy, a long-term, kind of retention, someone that's going to be around a while and that they can put some time into. So that's it. That's the intel tonight. We brought you several things that are certainly updates and we're clarifying things. Remember, Intel's about process. Results are a little bit different. You know, a lot of times we do have intel on what the result's going to be, but until you get there, everything else is about process, and there's a lot more information about that as you build up to things in recruitment. This is going to be kind of fast tracked if it happens for 25, right? Because you've already got all of your roster. You don't have to do this for Calipari, but he's the one that told us he was looking and maybe looking to do that. And we figured out where he was and what this looks like for now. And again, we're not here to tell you for certain that this player ends up in 25, but I think for certain Calipari's interested in bringing him in potentially as a development piece, whether it's 25 to finish this roster or maybe the next class if it doesn't work out to get him to 25. All right, gonna say our goodbyes now, nearly 26 minutes in. I'm Kevin McPherson. This was HogvilleNET YouTube Live, late Saturday night. We're gonna beat the midnight hour. We're not going to cross over into Sunday. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. That helps us out. We thank you for being here. We appreciate all of you. Be good. Nothing good happens after midnight. Yeah, it does. I'm about to find out myself. But until next time, see you soon.